Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Jack Canfield, your host, and my guest today is Chris Schaefer. He's a retired Army Green Beret and the CEO of Tactical 16 Publishing, helping veterans, first responders like police and firefighters, and their family and friends tell their stories. And his publishing company, which is called Tactical 16, is on a mission to capture the history of America's heroes. Stories of the sacrifices during chaos, the humor amid tragedy, and the victories earned from experiences not readily recreated. Real stories from real people. You used a phrase before we came on air. It was something like, history written by people who were there instead of people 50 years later who weren't. I love that phrase. It kind of captures a lot of what you're about with your company. So let's start about talking about your company. How did that come about and why the name Tactical 16?
Yeah, so an individual by the name of Eric Shaw, he was a NCO in the Army, was deployed to Iraq, unfortunately got blown up. He suffered a TBI. His friends and family, they started talking to him about him writing his memoir. And so he wrote a book called Brave Rifles. The interesting thing about that is when he was writing it, he found it very therapeutic. And so he wanted to pass that on to others, other veterans, anybody that has, been in a tactical situation or had a traumatic experience. It's very therapeutic. You can do it anywhere. And that's kind of what Eric wanted to do, was to share that therapy with everybody and give them an opportunity to tell their story. And as you know, publishing a book is not an easy thing. And he just decided to start his own company. And so Tactical 16 was formed, and that's kind of how it started.
Now, you call yourself an unconventional publisher. What do you mean by unconventional?
Yeah, so I kind of take that from my background a little bit, being in the military. So as an unconventional publisher, we have experts and professionals at every level, but the way we craft the contracts with our authors is really kind of an agreement between us to work together. And, we use other things that other publishing companies won't. For instance, when we do a signing party, we'll go maybe to a craft brewery and just have a good old time, sign a contract, have a few beers. And when we do release parties, we do the same thing. We went to a comic shop that sold coffee for one of our authors. And, we just like to have fun.
I like that. I'm going to have to do my next book signing in a beer hall, Chicken Soup for the Brewery Soul or something.
Absolutely. As you should.
No, I like that. It sounds like a lot more fun. Now, you went from being a Green Beret to running a publishing company. How was that for you?
Well, transition for guys, I've actually studied that subject. That I am an author. I co-authored a book. We won't go into that. So part of that book was about transition. A lot of veterans find it kind of difficult. And it depends. I mean, there's first-term people that, get out and get a job right away. But for me and for a lot of my peer group, career military guys, find it kind of difficult. So I got out. I got 2 masters. I did it within 24 months. I would not recommend anybody do that. That was very difficult and not much fun. But during that time, I was approached by one of my professors, and he said, "You want to write a book?" So I did, and I found out that writing a book is not for the faint of heart. But at the time, we didn't have a publisher, it's tough. You really got to get out there. You really got to promote your stuff. You got to try hard and take a lot of rejection. But I was having a beer. Speaking of having beers, I was having a beer with Eric Shaw. By chance, he owns the company. He owns the company at the time. And he said, "Why don't you publish with us?" And I was like, "Okay, And he said, "I'll give you a smoking deal on the royalties." And I went back to my co-author and he said, "Man, we can't pass that up. That's an awesome deal." And so we published with him. But, the thing at the time, I really didn't think I was going to be running this company, Jack. I mean, Green Beret to publishing, that's just not something we usually do. We become firefighters, we become police officers, we do all those normal things that a lot of guys do, but publishing just wasn't in the works for me. And I tried a couple other things. They just didn't work out. And this thing kept coming back. And then Eric said, why don't you be my COO? And I was like, okay, I can do that. And then a little more down the road, he said, hey, look, man, I'm going to do this other thing right now. Why don't you take the company? And I was like, sure. So, I just think it was divine intervention, to tell you the truth. I couldn't shake this thing. And I think the good Lord is just like, dude, this is what you're doing, regardless if you want to or not. So here I am.
That's great. I asked you earlier about the name of your company. I don't think you mentioned Tactical 16. How'd you get that name?
Tactical just refers to anybody that was ever in a tactical sense, Army, police. Tactical's got a broad kind of context to it. But 16 is to honor the 16 acres for everybody that was at ground zero, because there were 16 acres that were destroyed on that day. So that's where the 16 comes.
You're referring to 9/11?
Yep, 9/11. Yeah, my ground zero.
Yeah, I was there. We did a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul of America, and it was all stories that came out of 9/11. That was an amazing place. They were still working on that, and we were able to go into the church where all the fire personnel and the people were there, and they're sleeping overnight, and it was what an amazing time in our history as a country. So it's good that you're keeping that alive in a sense and honoring that. I appreciate that. And thank you for your service, by the way. I appreciate, I always say that to our fellow soldiers and sailors and so forth, because I think, I grew up during the Vietnam era when people were spit on when they came home. And I read I didn't go over there at the time. It didn't work out for me, but I read about 20 books of people who did. And it was important for me to understand what they'd been through. And there were some amazing books written, memoirs about the war. And so I'm glad you're keeping the memories of these experiences that are happening now and perhaps earlier alive as well. You're purely passionate about your mission. Why is it so important to you? Why does it? You're like this Green Beret. You parachuted behind enemy lines called the literary world. You're like a ninja now. You're doing this work. Why is this so important to you?
I mean, it's not just about the Green Berets, Jack. It's about everybody that served. It's about the mother that had a friend that was a military guy, and she wants to tell her story about how it affected her and her family. It's about the wives and the kids too. I mean, we're in an unprecedented time. My son actually went to the same places I went. So it's a generational thing, and we've got to be able to tell these stories, but from everybody's point of view, not just the Rangers and the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets. I mean, those stories always get told, but what about all the other stories? The medics, the transportation guys, the women that had to deal with guys getting blown up. I mean, they're taking care of these guys. And what about the wives that are now taking care of them? I think it's important to tell our history now, but what's really important, Jack, is to get it from the people that experienced it in their words. And that's why it's so important. But it's the police officers too. I mean, we're the firefighters, these nurses, everybody that's going through this time right now. I think we really need to get their point of view from it so that we can better understand it. Like yourself, you read all those books. You didn't just read one. You didn't read one history book. Right. You actually read those stories. And I think that's what's important. We shouldn't wait 50 years to tell history.
No, I agree. And, my brother is a psychologist. He works in Phoenix, and for many years, he was the guy on call for the Phoenix Fire Department. So if somebody had gone into a building and took out a dead child or whatever, and especially if they were a rookie, and they literally would be like, their whole psyche was blown, and he would be the one that would work with them. But those stories are not being told, and they need to be told so people can appreciate what these people are going through and have gone through. And I think when you talk about the wives of the people coming back, the wounded warriors, I've not read about that. That's really an important thing to do as well. And so I really salute you for what you're doing. How can people, if they want to buy your books, if they want to submit a book? How do they reach you? Where do they go?
Yeah, so we got a website. We're real proud of it. We launched it about 2 a.m. in the morning on the day after Veterans Day. We were trying to launch it on Veterans Day, but me and my web guy were like pulling our hair out because we had things going on anyways. Because we had this big marketing. Yeah, we're releasing it on Veterans Day now. It was actually on the 12th, like at 2 in the morning. But anyways, tactical16.com is where everybody can find us. If you want to really find out about what's coming up, sign up for our newsletter, and we won't send you any BS. We're just going to tell you what's going on about the coming in and going to solicit you for anything else. But if you want to become an author, go to that page too, tactical16.com. We've got a great video on there. Tells you how the process works. So, and, the other thing is, I really want to emphasize the fact that, look, if you have ever had a traumatic experience, try writing. It has been studied. I benefited from it myself. Journaling, writing about it is so powerful. And I think it will help our men and women, from all over that may have experienced a traumatic experience. So
I totally agree with you. I would just ask you to consider that maybe it was still Veterans Day in Hawaii or Guam when it hit midnight. So maybe you can still legitimately say it was Veterans Day. Anyway, Chris, good talking to you, man. Keep up the good work. I wish you all the best of luck and fortune, especially for all the people that are writing with you and for you as well. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And for those of you watching, I'm inspired just by what Chris is doing and the mission he's on. And if you know anyone who needs to write their story or who needs to read those kind of stories, which I think are all of us really, you know where to go, tactical16.com. Please